So this is a town's housing crisis exposes a house of cards, and this is by Mike Baker. And so this is a family pictured here. You see them standing. And believe it or not, this is Anna Ramon Bartolome, who makes her living tending to homes of wealthy residents and her family in a sweltering garage where they live in Haley, Idaho. So this was July the 20th, 2022, and this is where they stay at. So in Haley, Idaho, near the private jets that shuttle billionaires to their opulent Sun Valley getaways, Anna Ramon Bartolome and her family have spent this summer living in the only place that is available to them, behind a blue tarp in a sweltering two-car garage. With no refrigerator, the extended family of 4 adults and 2 young children keep produce on plywood shelves. With no sink, they wash dishes and themselves in a nearby park. With no bedrooms, the 6 of them sleep on 3 single mattresses on the floor. "I'm very anxious, depressed, and scared," said Bartolome, who makes her living tending to the homes of wealthy residents, but cannot even afford the cheapest housing in the famous ski and golf playground. So the resort towns have long grappled with how to house their workers. But in places such as Sun Valley, those challenges have become a crisis as the chasm widens between those who have 2 homes and those who have 2 jobs, fueled in part by the pandemic migration that has gobbled up the region's limited housing supply. Rents have soared over the past 2 years, leaving priced out workers living in trucks, trailers, or tents. It is not just service workers struggling to how to hold on, but a program director at a YMCA is living in a camper on a slice of land in Haley. A high school principal in Cary was living in a camper but then upgraded to a tiny apartment in an industrial building. A city hall or city council member in Ketchum is bouncing between homes of friends and family, unable to afford a place of his town or his own in his own town. So a small business owner in Sun Valley spends each night driving dirt roads into the wilderness, parking his box truck under the trees and settling down for the night. So a housing shortfall is now threatening to paralyze what had been a thriving economy and cherished sense of community. The hospital, school district, and sheriff's office have each seen prospective employees bail on job offers after realizing the cost of living was untenable. The fire department that covers Sun Valley has started a $2.75 million fundraising campaign to build housing for the firefighters. Already, restaurants unable to hire enough service workers are closing their doors and shortening hours. And the problems are starting to spread to other businesses. This is said by Michael David, Ketchum council member who has been working on housing issues for the past 2 decades. So it's a kind of house of cards, he said. It is close to toppling. So built as a destination ski resort to mirror the iconic winter appeal of Alps, Sun Valley area has grown into an exclusive enclave for the wealthy and famous. And so it draws Hollywood celebrities, political elites from Washington, D.C., business titans from Wall Street, many of whom gather each year for Allen and Company's annual media finance conference, known as the Summer Camp for Billionaires. So they have scooped up desirable vacation properties nestled next to winter ski lodges and summer golf courses, away from the gawking crowds of their home cities. So with the onset of the pandemic, the region saw an influx of wealthy buyers looking for work from home destinations with plentiful amenities, and the migration sent housing costs soaring even further. So in Ketchum, the town next to the Sun Valley, officials found that the home prices shot up to more than 50% over the past 2 years, with the median reaching about $1.2 million. So two-bedroom rentals went from less than $2,000 a month to more than $3,000 a month. So those jolts came after 2 decades of minimal residential construction in the city and a drastic shift in recent years that converted renter-occupied units into those that were either largely or kept largely vacant by the owners or used as short-term rentals. So similar trends are happening in the resort towns across the Rocky Mountain West, including Jackson Hole, Wyoming, Aspen, Colorado, Whitefish, Montana. Although some larger employers, including Sun Valley Company, have developed dorm-style options for seasonal workers, those have done little to change the housing trajectory for the border communities. And so people filed into the regional food bank in Bellevue, Idaho, one recent afternoon, ordering boxes of food from a warehouse stocked with cereal, fresh produce, and Idaho potatoes. So one family there said that they were being evicted from their trailer park where they had lived, and the land was going to be redeveloped. And so they had been unable to find a new place to stay or live and were fearful about what was coming next. And so the food bank has experienced a surge in demand in the past 2 years, serving about 200 families each week to nearly about 500 families, with the number still climbing. This was said by Brooke Pace McKenna, a leader at the Hunger Coalition, which runs the food bank. More and more, we are seeing the teachers, the policemen, the fire department, McKenna said. This is who is coming into the food bank. These are jobs that you thought were secure, and however, we're learning something different now. So Kayla Burton had grown up in Sun Valley region and moved away after high school more than a decade ago. And so when she returned last year to take a job as a high school principal, she and her husband, who is a teacher, were shocked at how hard it was to find a place to live. So home prices were spinning out of control, and she said even for places that were in desperate need of repairs, when rentals became available, the properties were flooded with applicants. So the couple looked at trying to build their own place, but found that the cost was far out of reach. So Burton and her husband moved into a camper on her parents' property, and the couple have since managed to find a unit inside an industrial building with no air conditioning, leaving them wondering if it is the kind of place where they want or would want to raise or start a family. So we are in a weird limbo spot in our life right now, she said, with some job applicants unwilling to make the move. The Region School District has 26 job openings, and some of that have gone unfilled for months. And so the district is working on plans to develop only seven affordable housing units for employees. Gretchen Gorham, a co-owner of Johnny G's Sub Shack sandwich shop in Ketchum, said that although it was vital to find housing for firefighters, teachers, and nurses, she also worried about the many people who service vehicles, equipment, and the homes. So this year, Ketchum officials were asked voters to approve a tax increase to fund affordable housing. And when you approve a tax, that includes the wealthy. So what happens with that? That was supposed to be for the next 10 years, and it didn't pass. So we live in a town of like the Wizard of Oz, Gorham said. People say one thing, and then behind closed curtain, they're doing another. Officials in the region have been reaching for Band-Aid solutions. In Hailey, city Rules prohibit RVs from parking on private property for more than 30 days, but the council members have agreed not to enforce those rules for now. As a result, RVs can be seen in this city or this town. They have RVs that are parked, and they basically explain that they have RVs, they're parked um, all over. You'll see that the people they have to live in like shanty living or low living situations. They're seen in driveways, side yards across town. So in Ketchum, officials considered opening what is a tent city for the workers, but they decided against that idea. So in an area whose principal asset is its spectacular wilderness, people have taken refuge in the woods. So you have people living in the wooded areas. So this is one guy's experience here. His name is Aaron Clark. He's 43, who owns a window washing business, but lost his long-term rental the past spring, and when the landlord sold the property for well beyond what Clark could afford. Knowing the exorbitant cost of all of the other options around him, he moved into a box truck where he uses as a shuttle to shuttle his ladders and his washing equipment for his business. So inside the truck, he has a bed, cabinets that he made, and he recently added amenities such as a sink, running water, and solar power. So he also got a refrigerator, so he no longer needs to put stuff or restock it in an icebox for his food. So out of the back of his in the back, a shower hose he has, and it has heated water. So each night when he's done with his work, he drives out to the wilderness to the park for each night. And then one recent day, he found a spot at the end of the potholed dirt road next to the stream where he had spent a bit of time assessing his situation and cryptocurrency market on his computer, and then played fetch with his dog. Clark said that he found joy in the lifestyle, but which at least has allowed him to save for when he eventually enters or re-enters the housing market, but it has its challenges. So it is a drain every day deciding where I'm going to park and where I'm going to go. And he said, so you get off work, you're tired, you're hungry, you're dirty, and now you have to decide where you're going to go and what you're going to do next. So the regions in this particular area, many of the Latino workers, about 1/4 to 1/2, are living in difficult situations. This is said by Herbert Romero, co-founder of the Hispanic Latin U.S. Leadership Task Force of Blaine County, a group that works with the community. So he said that he had seen up to 10 people living in 2-bedroom mobile homes. Others were living on couches, and some have been living in vehicles. And so this sounds a lot like LA County, like a mirrored image, but it's just in this town. And so I thought this article was very fitting for what is happening, which I think is a lot bigger than what the news and what a lot of people think is going on. So Ricky Williams, who is 37, grew up in the region before moving away and starting a career as a firefighter. So a year ago, he and his wife, they planned to return to Sun Valley, anticipating the high cost of living, but still unprepared for what they're about to find. So he recalled checking out one dilapidated house that was about $750,000, so well beyond their budget. And with him as a full-time firefighter, his wife has a small business. She is a small business owner. There was this rush of potential buyers on that day, and it was available that when it was available to see. So there was multiple people looking at this house. So he said a couple, they were lucky to get one at near the fire department existing housing units that they have found, and paying discounted rent to live next to the fire station in exchange for being on call outside of regular work hours. And so they found that housing instead. And so Williams said that he feared what was becoming his hometown. He was watching people being priced out and moving away. And so that is what is happening in LA County. You see a lot of people doing that, getting priced out of apartment living as well. And I see a lot of RVs, a lot of people that are living out of their cars or out of their van. Some people trying to buy RVs because that's where they're gonna probably end up having to stay. So uh, it says it's affected so many of his friends and family. He said that he came back here to the community to give back to his community, and I kind of see it slowly dwindling away. It's pretty heartbreaking. So this right here. I picked this article because it reminds me so much of what I'm seeing in Los Angeles. You see, not only the Latino families, you see all kinds of low income families, a lot of black families as well. Large percentage of black families that are in similar circumstances. They're living out of RVs, their cars, living with friends, or they're doubled up in housing. It's the same thing. The rents have shot up. People are, like when you're shopping in the grocery store now, you find yourself shopping more in the 99-cent store for food items, hoping that you'll catch, things that are more more cheaper to buy, but you have to go frequently because things come really small or little. You don't get too much out of there. Um, so it is hurting. A lot of people are hurting. I don't think they've displayed how this housing crisis is getting. And what do we have here? How we've been affected in LA County is the pandemic. You had a lot of people that lost jobs, or they ended up realizing they needed more money because the cost of living was going up, along with them not having enough, or maybe losing jobs. They're in between jobs, and then the jobs don't want to really pay. And now you have jobs that are drying up, they're closing, or they're shortening the hours. They say they're giving you all this money, but your hours are not the same of what they're paying you, and you're not getting paid, so you're right back to square one. So that's why you have people leaving the jobs also. It's not because people don't want to work, it's because they're not getting paid enough. And so if you don't get paid enough, you end up in situations like this, and making the drastic jump from having some housing to no housing, and makeshift housing, where you're homeless. And so the homeless crisis is a lot bigger than people know. It isn't just when you see people living in just tents. So do you see that even in the article, that these billionaires, they had a council meeting, and some of these people were willing to see people living in a tent city. So there's a stark reality here, and a difference that you see. You have people who, like they say, have two houses, and those who have two jobs. Or maybe they're struggling with the one that they have, the job they have. And then you have these billionaires who they don't really have to work at all. If they work at all, they can stay home longer, and they can watch their money work for them, and they're busy trying to hide their money or hoard their money, or they're trying to do other things with their money. And here you got people who are just trying to make money so that they can live in a place, and it has become a thing of where it is a luxury to have a place to live. That is where we are at now. And this housing crisis, it gets ignored, and they keep talking about the billions of dollars they've spent. They do that a lot here in LA County. We spent billions of dollars on, homeless housings and shelters and this, that, and the other. But what they don't see, that this dynamic is far bigger than just providing, shelters, or providing temporary shelters even. You have the jobs, what they're paying, the cost of living in the area. If you need the workers have to have places to live. You have the landlords who they want more for properties that have been there forever. Um, Now, I don't know if all of the landlords are doing this, but I will say there have been some that I've witnessed in South LA who have not been good about keeping up their property. But however, they want market rate rent. And so it is the same thing where you see 2 bedrooms are now have gone up. Um, they are a lot higher than what they normally should be, and they're the price of what once was 3 bedrooms. Um, and so you have 3 bedrooms that now are like well beyond what a house note is, and so it has shot up dramatically, and it's crazy because you can't qualify for a house, but you qualify if you make enough money, if you work 2 and 3 jobs and you can pay 3,000 a month for a 3 bedroom or more. And so they want 3 and 4 grand, maybe 5 grand, and so they're forcing people to not get any sleep. You're not even physically well at that point. It's unbelievable. And so this is what ends up happening when people realize that they can't afford this. They end up in situations like this. And so they have to end up living out of a garage or living out of their car or living out of a motel or living out of an RV. And it's easy to write or cancel people off and say, oh, they don't know what they're talking about. That's not happening because they're not experienced there. They don't know anybody that's experiencing this, or they ignore it, or they drive past the multiple RVs that they see lined up. They drive past it and they ignore it because they're not in that world. They don't have to live like that. But this is happening all across the country. It's happening all over the US, I believe, a lot bigger, more so than what they're saying, because every time you look, you'll see different stories, even in different states, where people are complaining that they're not able to afford their living and the rents. So it's crazy because people will move, they'll migrate thinking, well, if we move from this city and move to a smaller town, maybe things will be better. But this is a small town, but it's worse because there's only so many jobs, and then those jobs only pay so much. But the ones who are living good are the billionaires, and they don't even work those jobs. They own those jobs or they own other companies outside, and they just live in those towns and live well, while the workers who are in those little towns are struggling and they live like this. And so this is what we're living in, the times we're living in, and you're going to see a lot more families like this, I believe, before the end of this year. And so I was driving yesterday and I saw all of these homes here in certain areas and streets. There were so many homes for sale. And I know I had this friend, he was saying that there were a lot of people that weren't paying their mortgages. I don't know if they qualified for the mortgage rent relief, but I believe that maybe they lost their jobs, or I also was reading an article where they said that there's a tech company that actually downsized their employees. They laid off, they had big massive layoffs, and it was because of, I guess, in big companies they hire a lot of workers, they got to pay all those workers. But in order to save money for your company to thrive, you have to also terminate the workers so that you can preserve the company. And so they're expendable. And so that's what happens when you live in those situations and you have people, they say, well, I'm making this big money. And that's why I say it's unpredictable about how people's lives are going to be. These landlords, they want to hire They want to have people move in their apartments and pay this high rent, but you never can say that with the way the world is going, what people's living circumstance is going to be from one day to the next, one week to the next. One minute they could be making this high tech money, and the next minute they could get downsized and they could get a pink slip and lose their job. And it's not guaranteed that they'll go from one high tech job making a certain amount and go to another high tech job. That just doesn't always happen. Sometimes they don't even know they're going to get terminated. So they didn't have time to prepare to look for another job. And laid off. So that also causes unemployment to grow. And it's not what some lawmakers will say, oh, the people are just sitting back on unemployment. No, it could be situations like that. And then the job's not paying enough. Or if you're living on a fixed income, which there was another article I was reading where it says that there's developers buying up mobile park homes, believe it or not. Mobile park homes, and usually in those areas, that's where people who are low income, they retire and they live there with the anticipating that the cost of living is a lot cheaper. That's changing because when you live in a mobile park home, you have to, even if you own that RV or that mobile home, let's say you paid it off and you own it, you still got to pay for the space rent. So you're renting the space that your home is on, the slab that your home is on. So if they increase the space rent, now you got to decide, can you afford the space rent? And if you can't afford the space rent, and you can get, even though you own the home that is sitting on the space that you're renting, you could lose that home just because you didn't pay the space rent. Believe it or not. So, I didn't really know that myself in the beginning until I started learning more about it, that it was really ridiculous. I was thinking that's crazy because I think some people will move their mobile homes, but you don't really see very many mobile homes in some areas. They're only in specific areas. Like I think we have mobile homes in Carson and Long Beach and certain areas like maybe I'm guessing maybe Cerritos, so it's usually further out. And then I see it in parts. Sometimes I'll see it in parts of like the Gardena area, or like if I'm going and driving over that way, you'll see some small mobile home areas. But they're very small. You don't see, you see bigger, like bigger mobile home communities in like the Carson area. And then as you go further out, like Long Beach, but that, that space area, if you own that home, you still have to pay that rent. So they could increase it or decrease it, but if you have developers that are buying up those properties and they decide to increase that space rent, then if you're on a fixed income and you're only getting like a little more than $1,000 a month, you're not able to afford it. So even though you own that home, now you could lose your home, all because you can't afford the space rent. And so that is crazy. I was like no, why are you messing with the older people that only have fixed incomes? They can't like just go out and get a job and make more money, so they're not even at the age where they can just work two jobs. So it is really, really a cruel situation that a lot of people are under. And I foresee the worst of the worst happening, where you're going to have more poverty, more crimes of desperation. That's why you hear about, I don't know if you've heard, there's more home invasions going on. I feel like those are crimes of desperation because the people are so desperate. They're trying to do whatever they can. And you've got some people who, if they don't know what else or where else to turn, they're risking going to jail or prison, even doing crimes of desperation because of not having food to eat or not having a place to live. and maybe trying to find things that are valuable they can sell or take to the pawn shop. So this is what is happening. So see this title here? It says it's a house of cards. It sounds scary. It says the town's housing crisis. This is well beyond just this town, Sun Valley. It is in LA County. It is outside of LA County. It is outside of California. I've seen it in other states. I think it's in Alabama. I've seen people complaining. In Texas, I've seen people complaining about the rents. I've seen people like in Idaho. I've seen people in other cities, other towns in New York complaining about high rents, about how they can barely live where they live, and that they just have jacked up the rent in so many areas, and it's almost collectively like it's this cruel group that they profit off of the misery of those who can't afford it.